Okay, so I was going to say for posterity and for whatever you want to edit.
Oh, we'll get into what you did.
I fell asleep during, I think, all three of them. I don't think I saw a single fight scene. No, that's not true. I saw one in I basically did the scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to watch the third episode, because I got to watch a whole episode. So I did watch the third episode. No idea what's going on. So you can put that at the beginning of the episode. You can put that when we start talking a little bit about the episode. I was halfway through reading the synopsis for the first, a whole big plot summary for the first episode when you called. So I try to be a professional. But it's getting harder and harder every day.
You're doing great, buddy.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I am your host, Andrew, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host, Sleepy Seth.
Hey, that's my new nickname, I guess. I'm taking it back, Pete.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he fell asleep, and
How come he didn't have to be here today? I did the same thing.
And our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here, but he's sworn only to watch and never interfere, especially not to be Seth's alarm clock. So, Seth, what did I watch this week?
Well, Andrew, today you watched the first 3 episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which originally were airing Friday, March 19th, 2021, following the events of Avengers Endgame. Sam Wilson / Falcon and Bucky Barnes / Winter Soldier team up in a global adventure that tests their abilities and their patience.
Yes, motorcycle guy, right on time!
Well, I was talking, so you could have easily just edited that part out.
Oh, well, whatever. Who cares? He fell asleep, the motorcycle guy's going, this whole episode's already off the rails.
Okay, honestly, this is, if we were going to split this in half, since we were talking about maybe not, or doing a whole thing, this might be the best thing we could do in this situation. I might have saved this.
Oh, yes. If this did save, because I was going to say we should do one episode of the whole thing, and as soon as I learned that you done fucked up, I decided that's what's going to run this episode, because otherwise I didn't know what the hell I was going to say.
Now you can just berate me for 30 minutes.
In a sentence or less, Seth, I remember liking The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, watching these 3 episodes. They're fine, but there's nothing really special in them to really talk too much about. My large thoughts on this are as the series as a whole, which I can't get until next time, which is why I wanted to just do this all in one go. But we got something different to talk about. I will say my only other little addition to that sentence is I don't like when my fun superheroes for children say shit. I don't like the swearing. There's a lot of swearing in this. I don't care for it. Also, Bucky keeps saying, like, I'm not a killer anymore, and then he flat out definitely murders.
Then he does.
So, we don't need to hear your sentence unless because it's just going to be a bunch of Z's. So,
no, hey,
Go ahead.
No. Okay, so I think, and again, what does any of this mean? I honestly fell asleep during 2 of these. I think this is boring and slow and not that interesting. I don't care, I guess. And maybe if I watched it, I would. Because, we'll get into it, but there's a couple things that I can talk about and say, hey, this is like an interesting idea. I just don't think the show's going to do anything with it or is doing anything with it. And going by what you were saying about, should we just do this as one episode? Should we do this as part 1 and part 2? It sounds like nothing is really happening. Is that true or false? You know what I mean? Like, if there's not enough to talk about, I think that's a kind of a poor sign.
A hard cut. We're just going to get into the conversation here. I agree and disagree. I think this is doing more of what I want the Marvel movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe to do. I agree that not a lot happens, but I also think that I would rather have a 2 to 3 hour movie stretched into 5.5 to 6 hours that tries to do more and is broken into digestible. I mean, we both said that these episodes felt a little long, but digestible hour-long chunks or 45-minute chunks that try and do and explore more than trying to cram a bunch of fucking action scenes into 2.5 hours where the final 40 minutes is just a bunch of CGI bullshit and people smashing into each other.
Can we talk about CGI bullshit where people smash into each other for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first episode starts with a bunch of CGI bullshit of people smashing into each other. This is very video gamey.
I think the action in this show is bad. I think the action is edited very poorly. Watching this, my first thought during that opening scene is that, like, it's full of cool ideas. I think the idea of, like, opening up on the Falcon, like, flying into a plane, and then he uses his wings in a bunch of different, well, a couple different ways. But he uses his wings, like, he uses them as a shield in front of him, and there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. I think it is edited and filmed so poorly it is impossible to follow what's going on for a lot of it. And the action
I thought the
is just
CGI
kind of
looked
sloppy.
fairly bad. Like I
I
said,
think it looks good.
I thought it looked like a CGI cutscene, or like a video game cutscene.
Especially as far as a TV show goes. I know these have higher budget than your average
but
TV
less
show,
than the
but
movies, yeah, of course.
So I think
that's
I
kind
also
of
graded on that kind of scale where I'm just like, this looks good for a TV show.
We talked about this a tiny bit, I think in Iron Man 3? What's the one where he calls the kid a pussy, too?
3.
I don't get why everyone seems to like wingsuits. I think they're horribly boring.
I think they would probably be fun to use. I think you could think of fun ways to utilize them in a different movie. In a movie where one of your main heroes has his own jet-powered flight suit.
Magic.
And then they jump out and they're like, huh. Like, at that point, what's his name? Batroc turns around and he's like, ha, fucker. And he jumps out like, got him. He'll never catch us now. I'm like, you know that guy has wings, right? And that you guys are just floating on the air. That guy can actually propel himself forward.
That guy's whole shtick is flying through the air.
And they filmed that scene like, oh my gosh, are they going to get away? And I'm like, no, they're not, because they are moving at a quarter of the speed he is.
Well, and there's the whole thing where his thruster thing is damaged, but like it never really seemed to matter because he's flying and whipping around attack helicopters and things are blowing up. Like I never felt like he was in danger because his thrusters were weird and because everyone else is just in like little flying squirrel flight suits. I never felt any sort of tension, I guess, in that scene. I just kind of noticed it for what it was, which again, I felt was very, like, video gamey. And I felt like there was a lot of things that aren't necessary, but bugged me. The big one was Red Wing, like, cuts a hole through the plane, and then
cuts a hole through the plane and nobody notices.
Well, the atmosphere, like, blows the... Yeah, really. But the atmosphere, like, blows the door off, and then Falcon flies in, but there's, like, no atmosphere in the plane. Like, no one's getting sucked out of the plane then. And I understand, and I mean, maybe I don't know how planes work. I know people jump out of planes, and it's not like they're immediately sucked out of planes. Like, what?
Nothing. I was being a facetious dick.
Oh, hey, I get it. The zone, dark zone. But
what?
I don't know. Maybe I was just what?
I didn't know what your dark zone thing was.
Weren't you making a gremlin joke?
Yeah.
There's something on the plane.
Oh, Twilight Zone.
Yeah. See,
I'm
at half asleep. Anyways, I didn't like this. What I did like was the little scene at the bank where the guy's like, how do you make money? And he's like, I don't. And I didn't exist for 5 years. And I guess, like, that's like that's like something I'm interested in. Like, how the world works in the Marvel universe.
You say that, but then you also, like, kind of disagreed with that in WandaVision. But WandaVision, I guess my thing with this is it's better than WandaVision, which just kind of showed something and didn't say anything about it. This says something, but it says something that this kind of goes into, like, we realize that there are questions, but we don't want to actually work out the logistics of it.
And that's my problem here. With WandaVision, I agree. It kind of mentioned it and was just like, everyone came back. And
well, that's what I'm saying is both of these do that, though. I think WandaVision is more just, it shows it, and it's like, look, it was crazy when people popped back, but we don't really care about how that all worked. And then this one, it even shows, one of the episodes has like a commercial where they're like, people blink back into existence, and we help you find your life and get back to your job. And it's like, that's an interesting thing about the world that I kind of am curious about, and I guess a show could take time to explore, but it doesn't actually care. It just goes like, we know that it's weird. We know that people, like, blinked back into existence after turning to dust for 5 years, that the world would have to figure out, like, society would have to find a way to bring them back into the fold, but it doesn't actually care about explaining.
It's only there for set dressing for like the Flag Smashers who want to go back to like the blip world. And so I agree that they don't care. I think they bring up a more interesting point, maybe mainly because they don't bring up a point in WandaVision. But like, it was interesting. The bank scene was interesting to me because that was kind of like a character study on who the Avengers are. They aren't on a payroll.
How about they're not on a payroll?
Some of them haven't existed for 5 years, and it's just kind of like everyone loves the Avengers, but it's still just like, yeah, but we're a business, and like, we can't give you this loan because you didn't exist for 5 years. Like, that to me is more interesting than a Southeast Asian island fight scene leading to explosions. But the problem is that the show, at least what I saw, and again, you kind of mentioned that I'm right, the show doesn't care. It's only there to make it so that when they introduce the villains of the Flag Smashers who want to go to the blip world, it's like, oh yeah, like...
Well, I think it is there for that, but I think it's also there so that it can say, like, look, people watching this show, you're not smarter than us. Like, you didn't...
Yeah, there might be some of that.
You can't call us out for this. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of, like... It takes some time to, like, look into a couple smaller things that a movie doesn't take time for, but I feel like it doesn't really do much with it. And there's, like, a line early on where they say something about Falcon's suit being Stark tech. And I always thought, like, yeah, I guess they stole that from a government facility and no one cared. But then later on, he is wearing a different suit later, and I was like, Stark probably did build that, and that makes sense. Then he uses it with the Avengers, and it's, if not his suit, it's Stark's suit. It's either his suit or Stark's suit, but it's not necessarily the government's. But then later on, they're like, that's government tech. That's how we were able to trace you. We looked into Red Wings. You probably don't remember this because you were asleep, but Captain America New Flavor shows up, and he's like, we were able to find you because of Red Wing. Like, we tracked Red Wing because he's government tech. And I thought, like, does the government own his wings and everything? Like, I'm sure they do, but also, like, it makes everything in the Marvel Universe is weird, and the more you think about it, the more questions I have, and yes. I just don't get it. And, like, I will say, I like the Captain America movies, and this shows... I think the world works best, the Marvel Universe works best when it is toned-down superheroes doing, like, spy stuff. I think, like, that's why Black Widow works. I think that's why the Winter Soldier movie works. I think when you just take the world of, like, superheroics are basically just like rebranded super spies, it works. That's how Falcon works. And I feel like every time it like starts to go out of there, it gets muddy and confusing really, 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 really fast. Also, early on, they say it might be one of the big three, androids, aliens, or wizards. And that's there solely for a joke because he's like, every time we fight someone, that's what it is. And I'm like, you guys have never fought wizards. Wizards are not enough of a thing. You know Doctor Strange exists, but you guys have never encountered wizards beyond him. You've never had to deal with them. It should be androids, aliens, and augmented people, I guess. Ooh, like the 3 A's. Because that's what it ends up being, and that's the only other thing you've ever fought, is someone who also has like some kind of version of a super soldier thing coursing through their veins, or superpowers, or something. You guys have never fought wizards. It's just, and it's there for a stupid joke, so they can have a joke about, like, does he know who Gandalf is? And a sorcerer is just a wizard that doesn't wear a hat, which I think is a funny line, but I don't know. It's like I said, like, all of this stuff, every time it, like, tries to do something in this world, all that does is highlight. It's like explaining Batman's armor and everything to me. Batman makes complete sense to me if he's just a guy who dresses up like a bat and fights crime. When you start explaining how the ears point up because he's got radios in them and he wears like bulletproof whatever and everything, like the more you explain him, the more you put him in body armor and have to over explain everything, all it does is highlight how stupid and nonsensical it all is, and all it does is bring to light more questions. But when you just kind of go like, it's a superhero, who cares? Then I go, yeah, it's a superhero. Who cares?
So, as someone who watched these 3 episodes, and honestly watched all 6 at some point, what is the show? Without
getting too much into it, the show is a bit of... It is a movie. It is a longer movie divided into 6 parts.
But, like, what's the genre? Like, what is it trying to accomplish?
I guess, again, what it's trying to accomplish is, you said originally that you felt WandaVision was like a thing that existed to fill a gap, and I disagreed. I felt WandaVision was trying to do something. I just think it failed. This movie exists to fill a gap. This movie exists to...
set up Captain America and...
It exists to do something with a couple loose ends, and then to basically like connect some stuff so that they can have a clean slate for a new status quo going forward. So that we don't just like open up a movie and say like, this is where everything is. Instead, like this is like a, not really origin, but mini origin of a couple things. to get like pieces into place and to put things in, like, it's a weird thing because I think as a show it doesn't stand on its own, and as a movie, like, it's too long as a movie, and I don't think if you condense this into a movie, I don't think it works. I think it flows better. I don't think you would necessarily have fallen asleep during it.
It's like a 4.5-hour movie.
But I think if you condensed it into that 2.5-hour runtime that most of these are, you're cutting out everything that makes this worth bothering. Mm-hmm. Because what makes this worth bothering is all the times it kind of slows down. You get to go see Sam's family. I like the stuff with Bucky. I think Bucky, when he is doing everything else in this movie, is just kind of whatever. And it's like in complete opposition of Bucky when he's by himself, I think is doing something interesting. It just stops caring whenever somebody else is in the room. But when he's like alone with his thoughts and like kind of dealing with what he did, like I like the stuff with him, with the old man. I like him going on the date. I like his notebook of like names of, what is that show with the guy who was in Alvin and the Chipmunks and Mallrats?
My Name is Earl.
My Name is Earl. His little My Name is Earl book. I think all that stuff is interesting. And I think that could carry its own movie, but that's not the movie Marvel cares to make. They want to make this thing where they can have all these big action beats. And
that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the bank scene, where it's just like, what I am interested in is always not what the studio is interested in. I feel like I've seen these action scenes in the 24 movies I watched prior to this. I understand that it's a Marvel thing, you gotta have action scenes and stuff like that, but like, why are they so afraid of character dramas? Why are they so afraid of character studies? Why are they so afraid of like an introspective on Sam and his sister, like, struggling to find their way?
I mean, I can tell you exactly why.
Because we're the only ones that care?
Yeah, because they're scared of not making money.
Yeah. Because
you talk to people and that's a lot of them, that's not what they care about. Or if that's all there is.
I mean, I guess there's more than just that, but I guess like,
I like the stuff with Isaiah as well. I think that's interesting. The problem is the show doesn't, like, it cares to bring it up. It doesn't care to really do anything with it. Isaiah is not a character so far in these 3 episodes. I know he shows up, this isn't a spoiler, he shows up later. I honestly don't remember.
I don't even know who Isaiah is, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Okay, so let me give you a rundown. I'm just gonna kind of like, let's see. So
I'm looking through the plot summary of episode 1. I honestly don't remember Bucky's stuff. I don't remember him dating. I don't remember him with Nakajima.
Then it's no wonder you absolutely hated this.
I remember Sam's stuff.
I don't disagree with your like broad strokes of the series so far, but I also think like it is unfair that because you did not watch it.
It's horribly unfair. I do feel bad that I fell asleep during these. I try not to.
I was tired, so I had caffeine before I sat down.
And I'm not even blaming it all on the show or even any of it on the show. Like, I was just tired today too. I haven't been sleeping. You haven't been sleeping. Like, I just watched it and fell asleep. So I understand that this is, again, a me thing, and even everything I say is with a grain of salt because it doesn't really matter. But I think the only thing, looking through the summary of episode 1, the only thing, which is probably half the episode, that I have no concept of is Bucky's stuff.
Okay, so Bucky, it was towards the beginning, Bucky
has the nightmare, and he's like in the therapy, and she's like, you don't have any friends. And he's like, I kill people and I hate it. And I have my Name is Earl book. And that's all I remember of Bucky.
He has made friends with an old man who is the father of the person that he killed in that nightmare scene. Because he kills a bunch of people, and then there's like a kid, like a salesperson, like a young man trying to get into a room, and he kills that person. He befriends that man's father and is trying to work his way to atoning in some way, but can't do it. That man, they go to lunch, and that man sets him up on a date with a girl who works at I think it's a sushi bar that they go to. He goes on a date with her. They kind of talk for a little bit. She talks
I do kind of remember that, and then he like leaves.
Yeah, she talks about that man losing his son, and then
I remember the shrine.
Yeah, and then he leaves.
Okay, so the only thing I missed was him like talking to Nakajima and like understanding that connection, because I didn't make the connection when I saw the shrine. But that's interesting stuff that you kind of say that the show probably cares more than Sam's stuff, but isn't the point of the show.
I think the show is definitely more Sam's than Bucky's, which there's a reason for it, and I don't disagree with that reason. I just personally find Bucky's stuff more interesting because Sam's stuff feels forced. A lot of Sam's stuff is told to us now about his family and everything, and then there's a lot of racial stuff, which I don't have a problem with, but it's all shorthand. there's little, it's not that it's not shown. It is shown. There's a lot shown. But I guess it's just something that it's not really meta-narrative, but it kind of is. It's commentary, and I agree with the commentary, but I feel like the show doesn't really care about Bucky. It cares about Sam's stuff. But the thing is, for a long period of the show, Sam doesn't care about Sam's stuff, which I think is why I don't connect with it. He doesn't really care. When the racial stuff happens, it's not something he really cares about at that moment. It's not that he doesn't care. It's hard to explain. The later half of the series gets into it a little more, but it's something that, like, he doesn't care about it as much as everyone else does. And because he doesn't care, and personally, like, I like the scenes of people talking, but I'm more interested, I guess, the scenes of Bucky talking with someone or Bucky doing whatever are also connected to the superhero stuff. Therefore, it is interesting to me in this superhero world. Whereas the Sam stuff, as of right now, is just Sam stuff. Like, you could take out all the superhero stuff and it's just a movie about a guy trying to get along with his sister and save their family business, which there's nothing wrong with. But at least the Bucky stuff is connected. And I think that's, like, I don't know how to explain this in a way that makes sense to anyone but me.
I do think it makes sense what you're saying. So, looking at the synopsis I think I missed all of episode 2, honestly. I'm looking through, I'm just kind of skimming this stuff. I think I missed all of
Did you even know there was another Captain America?
Yes, because he's at the end of episode 1. And I like the US agent stuff. I think that is like an interesting story to have Sam be like, hey, I'm not worthy of the shield. I'm giving it to the Smithsonian. And then the government's just like, okay, but here's this cool new Captain America. We need a Captain America. And then him, like, struggling with, like, well, this Captain America isn't Steve. Like, it's not what we need, what people need out of Captain America.
Yeah, it's weird, though, because Bucky cares. Again, this is probably another reason why I'm more interested in Bucky stuff. Bucky cares more than Sam does. Sam cares, but in the episode that you didn't watch, Sam is kind of, like, compartmentalizing in a way where he's just like, they did it, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, what do you want me to do? Go back and just tell them I changed my mind and take the shield back? So Bucky's the only one that cares, and it's weird. It's also strange because I know that Steve and Sam were friends, and I see that in the movie in as much as anybody is friends. But there's maybe this is where you usually have your comic book brain. This is where my comic book brain comes in, where you just go like, Bucky's his like best friend, and Sam's like,
Sam was just like a partner. Yeah, like, and I think that's fair because, I mean, like you said, Bucky is Steve's friend, but other than just like, I mean, they're like, Sam and Steve are like work colleagues in the way that like Hulk and Bucky are work colleagues. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously they're closer than that, but there's just something about like, and maybe I'm just forgetting the movies at this point, but like Captain America and Falcon felt like just, they're both in the movie, so they work together. Like, we're told a couple times that they're friends, and we kind of see it, but I guess I don't know why I have such... It's because it's a lot of tell, don't show. I mean, even in this, it starts off with the voiceover just like, hey, I'm not worthy, and Steve's like, yeah, you are. But like... Well, even that is weird, because from a meta-narrative reason, I understand why Sam is the one who's given the shield. I understand why this cares so much about giving him the shield. And I agree with that reasoning. The problem is, I feel like that reasoning is metatextual. Because I feel like Sam is his own person. Sam has his own identity. Bucky is the one living in... I feel, even within these movies, even outside of my comic book brain, I feel like Bucky is the one living in Steve's shadow. Bucky is the one who has a past that he needs to redeem himself from. I feel like he was the one who, if Cap was going to give someone the shield, that is the one with more meaning behind it to give it to Bucky. Because that, like he says in one of these episodes that you probably don't remember because you were asleep, they have a talk. Were you awake when this was in episode 2. No. When they're in the police station and the psychiatrist makes them sit together? No. Okay. She makes them sit together, and then she has a thing where they like have to like interlock their legs and like... Yeah, I saw this picture. Yeah. So they have to do that. And basically Sam asks, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember specifically, but Sam asks Bucky, like, why do you care so much? Like, why are you so upset that I gave up the shield? And Bucky says something along the lines of like, Steve believed in you, but if you gave up the shield, then maybe he's wrong. And if he's wrong about you, then he's wrong about me. Ooh, I do remember that line. And I think that speaks also a lot to like, why didn't Steve give him the shield? Because it feels like giving him the shield means more to Bucky than it does to Sam. Where was Bucky at the funeral? Standing there behind Sam, and when Steve gives him the shield, he like nods.
He like nods like, yep, you take that.
See, it's funny though. Like, I can see why. I think Sam getting the shield.
I think Sam deserves the shield. I just feel from the narrative that we are told within these movies and the characters as I understand them and their relationships, I feel like Steve would have given Bucky the shield and it would have meant something to Bucky.
See,
Whereas,
I actually feel like, other than the fact that I feel like a lot of Sam and Steve's relationship was told not seen, I feel like, ironically, Bucky and Steve's relationship has more of the Bucky's his own person. To me, I feel like Steve giving Bucky the shield is like, okay, keep being in my shadow. Like, you'll never be out of the Captain America shadow.
I can see that logic.
And that's why I feel like Bucky doesn't necessarily need the shield, nor do I
agree.
I don't feel like Bucky needs the shield. I feel like the gesture would be significant of like, hey, do you want the shield? But my Bucky would not take the shield just because Bucky is the Winter Soldier. Like, Bucky has blood on his hands that won't let him hold the shield. And he's trying to make amends and stuff like that. But like, to me, there seems like a bigger, that's my reasonings for why I don't think Bucky needs the shield. However, I do think he has a stronger connection with Steve than Sam does. And I agree with you that I think it's fair for Steve to give Sam the shield. It's just the relationship we were given, I don't think is strong enough, or we saw enough of it that this feels big and important.
Like you said, I could see Steve giving Bucky the shield and then Bucky turning it down. And not that I need to see that, because Sam does not deserve a hand-me-down.
Like, I don't want this, so you want it then? Like,
or
he just
whatever
turns to Sam and just...
He doesn't deserve that. He deserves the shield.
Seconds.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was looking. I was like, there is a term that I can't think of.
Were you really thinking sloppy seconds?
No, but that was
like, there's no way you're thinking it.
No, I was thinking like when you get a gift and then you give it to someone else.
Regift.
How about when it's so obvious? And
I honestly don't know what you're talking about. I feel like it's
maybe regifting is the term, and that's why I was just like, oh, maybe that's it.
I mean, it's just like a petty like
yeah,
Bucky, here, you should have my shield. I'm old now, and Bucky's like, no, Cap, I can't do it. And then he just turns to Sam and he's like, okay, well, you want it? Oh, can I? This feels so important.
Gee whiz. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't really care for Baron Zemo. There's a lot of like, the Marvel Universe was so grounded for so long, and now it's like trying to break out of that, but it's still trying to do it within the constraints that it originally built around itself. So when Zemo like gets his car and then he's like, I'm gonna pull this like purple sock out, and I'm like, I love seeing Zemo in the stupid purple sock and his big dumb furry collar, but the Civil War movie led us to believe he was just like some dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think the Civil War movie acknowledged that he was a baron, and that's fine. He can be a baron, but he's just like some dude, and now he's like a different character now. Yeah, now he's like a criminal mastermind, and he's like got this whole like the part of the criminal the seedy underworld of the world.
Before he was just like a cameo, and now they're like, well, shoot, we have to use him. I think he's fine as a different character. I think all the stuff works. He does a stupid thing that everybody has to do in these Marvel movies where he has his balaclava on, and then at the end, he like has to take it off. He like puts it on, walks for a scene, and then like gets to a door.
At least it didn't like disappear because it was made of nanites.
I wish he had enough connections to make it with nanites so that everyone could just do that.
And I don't really know how I feel about Sharon Carter. We'll get more into her in part 2, but
oh, that's who that is. I kept wondering what I missed, because in the third episode, she fights everybody at the docks or at the.
So in Civil War, she stole Cap's shield and Sam's flight suit and gave it to them, but that meant she had to like go on the run, just like they did. But I guess she was never dusted, and so when Sam came back, he just didn't like figure out where she was. I guess nobody bothered.
Well, there wasn't a movie yet. They didn't have to worry about it.
She had fled to Madripoor, where she's now like also like a criminal, part of a criminal empire, or has her own criminal empire.
She steals paintings
whatever her deal is,
and has raves in her painting room.
Yeah.
How about there was a scene where everyone's just like, she's like, you guys can stay here and like enjoy the party, and then there's like a 30-second scene of a rave, and then that's that.
I remember there's a clip of like Zemo dancing at the rave that isn't in the show, but I guess it was on the cutting room floor and it made it onto the internet, and everybody was losing their minds. They're like, look at this zany scene of Zemo dancing, and it's like, okay, it's fine. It's whatever. I don't
need that. The Flag Smashers, which is, Sam calls it out, it's a dumb name, and I think Is Flag Smashers a comic
Flag
book
Smasher
term?
is a character. I believe his name is Carl, because there's that Carly, whatever her name is. I believe his name is
Carly
I think
Morgenthau.
it's just Carl Morgenthau. Because Flag Smasher is a singular character in the comics.
It works a little bit better for me as a singular character than an organization.
I don't mind the organization stuff, and it's like I said, I kind of like
I say
the
the
Marvel
name.
universe.
I say the name is...
But I like the Marvel universe as this, like, let's translate superheroes into super spies. I think that's the way that this works best for me. If you're not just going to go full on superheroes stopping bank robbers, then superheroes as super spies works for me. And then we just like find different ways, take Baron Zemo, and instead of like, I don't know what Baron Zemo was, a Nazi or something. Instead, we make him like a part of a criminal empire. And, the Flag Smasher is now like a group of people doing riots or what have you. Like, I think that's where the Marvel Universe works best for me.
Well, that's kind of, and maybe the show is this, but I wouldn't mind if this felt more thrillery. And it doesn't. It feels so, I think we've used this term with Marvel movies before, it feels so sanitary. Like, it just feels generic. But either way, so the Flag Smashers want to they have the super soldier serum, and they're going to make super soldiers with the serum.
I don't know if that's even their plan. They have the super soldier serum,
okay.
And maybe they want to make super soldiers. I don't remember what their plan.
Or they're using it as like a bargaining chip?
I just know that 8 of them have taken it, but there's 20 doses total, because that's what was said in the 3rd episode when they meet the guy that made it. Isaiah Bradley is apparently where they got the serum, because he was another Captain America, or well, in the comics he was. In this, I don't know exactly what he was. As far as I know, they never explicitly state it, at least as of yet.
He's just like
he's a super soldier.
He was like a test subject.
Yeah,
or
he was a
whatever,
super
yeah.
soldier, fought in the Korean War, but as a black man, he was treated as a criminal. I guess he was thrown in jail, and then they just like kept pumping his blood and using that to try and figure out how the super soldier serum worked. At least I guess. Well, I don't know. How did he get the... Because I was thinking like, okay, the scientist in the 3rd episode says, we found some old bits of blood that were drawn with the super soldier serum in it, and then I was able to extract that and figure out how it worked and then basically remake it, but better. And I was thinking, okay, he must have gotten that from Isaiah, because Isaiah says like, they would draw his blood all the time and all this crap. But then I'm thinking, where did Isaiah get it? I mean, he could have just been someone that they experimented on, and I guess that is probably the answer, but I guess, I don't know, I don't care. The show doesn't care. Maybe it does. Maybe they said it and I missed it, or maybe a later episode will explain it. But it sounds like he just is a super soldier, and you don't really question why. Either they experimented on him with Cap blood that they somehow found, or they just like injected him with... Maybe they froze him for 30 years and brought him out all caveman strong.
He's just like there for backstory.
Well, he's there, and he's also there for, I guess, kind of set dressing. There's a lot of a racial narrative throughout this show, and that's what he's there for. But the problem is he's not a character yet. He's there so that they can be like, look what they did and who they did it to. But his scene is like 3 minutes long, if even that. He tells them, I was a super soldier. I fought the Winter Soldier and tore off his arm. I'm real mad. I'm going to throw this, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a lighter. I don't know, or a flask or something. I'm going to throw this at the wall so that you guys can see that I'm super strong, and then kick you out. And he shows up later, but as of right now, he's not a character.
Mm-hmm.
He's a prop with a name. And that's how a lot of this feels. Sharon only feels like a character because she was in 2 other movies where she was not even really a character. But she feels like one because I've seen her before. So when she shows up, I'm like, it's Karen.
Yeah.
But she's a whole new person, and she basically exists to be the plot bus that drives them to the next place they need to go. Zemo is a completely new character. Bucky is a different character when he's not in his like quiet contemplative scenes. Right now, the Flag Smashers aren't really characters yet. We get a little bit about Carly, but not really. I don't even think we've been told anything. I think we just see... I think we're told that she has a sick mother or know someone who's sick, and then we see her like sitting at someone's bedside. But I feel like for as much as this show is using its time to have those slow contemplative scenes, but it's only doing it with the characters we already know. But it's introducing all these other plot elements and just kind of like hoping that they speak for themselves so that we can keep doing other stuff. And like, of the 3 episodes, each episode has had 1 or more action scene, and I feel like you could cut some of them out.
Yes.
I mean, you always can cut the action scenes out, but I think some of them work. I like the scene where they're fighting on top of a truck. It's stupid.
I did not see
it's
that
stupid
scene.
that Bucky, when there's two trucks leaving and Bucky runs after them, he runs to the first one and tears it open. And that's because they know that someone's inside of it. But the truck behind him does not react to the fact that a guy just ran up to it, opened up the doors, and goes in there and stands in there for an absurdly long amount of time, for as much as they continue to show you that there's another truck driving immediately behind them. And that truck is only there so that he can get kicked out of the back of the trailer by Carly and land into something so that they continue fighting.
So I already mentioned I did not care for the flight suit fight scene, and I did not care for the shipping container fight scene.
That one was just a bunch of... I don't like guns and explosions. I find it boring and nauseating.
Yeah, it was so boring. And it just, like, Sharon comes in and she's
I think Sharon's little
"We got
bit where
company."
she's fighting... She fights like 6 guys and she just like moves on from one to the other. I think is fun because it gets into a little bit of choreographed...
But it all just feels not worthless, but not worthwhile.
It does not
Like,
need to be there.
It's there.
fat.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, we gotta have a fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like happening
It's there for
while
flavor.
they're...
I mean, I don't fault them for putting fight scenes in. I just, if they were filmed, like, I think the opening fight scene could be cool. I just don't think it was filmed well. I thought it was kind of exhausting and nauseating, and it was also stupid when they're like, we're going to get on our glide suits, come catch us, Rocket Man.
It feels... The shipping container fight scene to me feels impatient. Because they're interrogating the guy who, like, made the super serum soldier, or the super serum. And it feels like we don't trust our audience to not turn this off. So we gotta have Sharon Carter come in and fight people.
I agree, but I also think it's there because there are certain things they don't want to deal with right now. And one of them is they want to have the scene where Zemo shoots the scientist because he does not want there to be super soldiers. So he shoots the only guy who can make the super soldier serum. But they don't want to deal with a scene of everybody yelling at him and then trying to explain why he's still around. So if they immediately have the place blow up, then everybody just has to like drop what they're doing and run so that then Zemo can, you know, put on his sock and shoot a bunch of people. And then they're like, hop in my car. I'm Baron Zemo. Fucking deal with it. And then they drive off. And then the next episode, we can have a scene where they all go, why did you shoot that guy? You done fucked us.
That's fair, but why have Sharon Carter fight through 10 people before that?
I agree, but I feel like that's to kind of set that up and to give some tension to that scene. Because otherwise, it's a bunch of people standing there talking, and that's boring. But then we know it's tense because she's fighting people, and she's like, they're going to be there any minute if I'm not fighting them. They got a rocket launcher.
But
Kaboom.
I guess to me, it just feels... it just felt like she says, we don't have much time. We got company. That's fine. Add tension to the interrogation. Sorry, it's not an interview. And I feel like that's kind of what you need there.
I disagree. I mean, I agree, but I don't think that fight scene is
as problematic as I say.
I think like everything else, it's fat that could be cut. It's not necessary, but I also don't feel like it's anything worth caring about. Like I also didn't mind that fight scene. Like I said, she does some fun.
It's better than all the shooting afterwards. Well, I guess my
problem is then there's the big shooting
afterwards,
where there's a rocket launcher and then a million guys, and then Zemo gets on top of a thing and blows up a gas tank or something, and it's just, I hated all that. I'm gonna be honest,
that's kind of where I want what you talk about with like the super spy thriller stuff. The Winter Soldier is a gun-toting hero.
Yeah, but you hate that gun because he's got the super fist.
Well, when he uses the super fist to hit the trigger, it's like a super gun thing.
Oh, now you're okay with the gun.
It shoots a gun better. But, like, I don't know. There's such a fine line for me, I guess, between what these fights... I think of this as, like, 24 with superheroes.
Mm-hmm. 24 is also fucking stupid, though.
Yes. But 24 is something I remember, like, my dad and brother and I watching. And it's stupid, but, like, this does not feel, nor should it, because fucking time has passed and 24 sucked. But, like, I feel like this should maybe have the same idea as, like, 24 with superheroes, and I don't think it is. But just kind of that thing where it's like, we have this, like, crazy military guy who's biting off people's necks. But since these are superheroes, they're not biting off necks. They're, like, using super arms to grip necks.
I think part of the problem is this is a Falcon and Winter Soldier show, and it does something with the both of them, but I feel like I understand the convenience of putting them both together. And I understand not even necessarily the convenience. I understand the value of putting them both together. But I feel like, honestly, Bucky needed his own miniseries where he dealt with his bullshit. And then Sam needed his own miniseries where he dealt with his shit. And they do have something together, but like I said, this show focuses far more on Sam, and Bucky's stuff falls almost entirely to the wayside, to the point that, like, I honestly think we've seen all of Bucky's stuff until the finale. Like, it just stops kind of caring for a while, because his stuff isn't as important to them because it's not part of the larger narrative. But I feel like a show that is a super spy show that is, let's take this, you know, Cold War super assassin and basically turn him into a super spy and have him like wrestling with his past. I feel like that could carry itself. And then also, like, Sam is trying to determine, like, why does he have the shield? What does he do with the shield? But I mean, he gives up the shield in the first episode, and that's fine. I don't need episodes of him holding onto it, figuring out what to do with it. But I feel like if he had his own show, you could have a couple episodes of him kind of contemplating what to do with the shield, talking to people about why he thinks he should give up the shield. Because he keeps saying, like, he keeps saying that line of, like, you know, I told Cap, feels like it belongs to someone else, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said. But he never elaborates on that. He never says why he doesn't think it belongs to him. He just keeps saying, like, I think it's Steve's, like, it belongs to Steve. And I get that. But that's all he really says. And so I don't really have investment in that. He just, like, gives up the shield and then they give it to John Walker.
I don't necessarily think, again, grain of salt because I didn't watch it, I don't think there's enough for too many series.
I think there is. Well, I don't think what is in this show is enough. I think there is enough in this show to extrapolate into a story for too many series. Like, give Bucky his own haunting from the past that he has to deal with. There's another super soldier out there, or there's another, you know, spy out there that knows something. Or, you know, if he didn't have his mind unwiped by the Wakandans, you know, maybe there's someone out there who can tap him into it, or maybe he's blacking out, or maybe he has memories of something he did in the past that he can only fracture, like, he can only remember bits and pieces of it, but he knows that it's important and he needs to go do something before something comes to it. Like, you can take his story, what little there is of it, and put it into something that complements it. But instead, he's just here to be the other potential Captain America to hang out with Sam for a buddy cop thing.
Maybe this is more the show's not doing what we want it to do. Maybe this is more that this is just not what the show is. But I think there's a lot of decent connections to be able to fit Sam and Bucky into one series and accomplish what you need.
I agree. I just don't think this show is doing it.
And that's kind of what I was wondering. I was wondering, is it more that it's not its goal?
This is not me saying Sam and Bucky can't do a show together. This is me saying I don't think this show is doing what I need with them to justify it. Because like I said, Bucky's just kind of there.
I don't think it needs to be split up into two shows. I think there's a lot of great connections of Bucky has that direct connection to Steve and the super soldier serum. Sam has the lighter connection with Steve with his shield. I think there's a lot of neat stuff you can do while doing character studies and introspectives into both of them as they work together to deal with, like, the super serum plot.
Speaking on that, I think you could also do something interesting, which you would have. I mean, this would be a lot of retconning on the show's part, because this is not the Steve that we know.
This is what we always do, where we're just
I'm just saying, like, you could also do something interesting with, like, Bucky knows the Steve that was, Sam knows the Steve that is. Like, yeah. Steve never changed, but you could do something where it's like Steve is not the person that Bucky remembered, and
Bucky's different. Like,
Sam knows Steve as only a person for a handful of years, whereas Bucky knew him for his life.
And I mean, Bucky is different, and Sam is who he is. And I think you could have interesting conversations there where Sam and Bucky talk about the shield and what it means and what Captain America meant and
what, like, Cap wanted. Why, and they can disagree
and
there.
Why Sam is deserving. Yeah, and like why Sam is deserving and why Bucky is not and things like that. Like, I think there's interesting stuff to talk about there. But like we were saying, the show doesn't really care about that as much as it cares about getting to a fight scene or dealing with, like, the Flag Smashers or something. Like, my problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far is it doesn't care enough about what I care about, which it, like, dangles in front of me like a carrot. But at the same time, I feel like I'm missing something to drive my interest. Like, the Flag Smashers want to go back to the blip. They miss the blip, right?
Yeah, and I don't really understand how they think they're going to accomplish it.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't understand what their goal is.
What are the Flag Smashers doing? Like, what is?
They just say they want the world before the blip, but what does that mean? They want,
and they're taking super soldier serum to.
They want burnt out cars,
rebel and riot.
Like when
they're gonna
walking around.
They're gonna fight half the that world's population to death. Like, and that's my problem. Like, I think get rid of the Flag Smashers, have U.S. Agent be the bad guy. Have them be like, here is the new Captain America, and Sam's like, I can't be the new Captain America. I'm not worthy. And he sees awful Captain America, and everyone's just like, okay, but this isn't what Steve wants.
Yeah, what if they did John Walker as the villain, but not explicitly and the problem is, it's a Marvel show, so they need to have their villain right away. So that's why they established the Flag Smashers.
But I guess John Walker doesn't feel like he's not a
No,
villain.
but I mean, he's an antagonist.
He's an antagonist.
But what I'm saying is, he's not even introduced till the end of the first episode. But what if instead the show was, obviously John Walker in the end would be a problem. But what if Bucky and Sam didn't agree on John Walker? What if Sam chose John Walker instead? What if he said, like, I can't have this, but I looked up, like, they gave me all these candidates. I looked at everybody. This guy has a great, like, look at this glowing record he has. This guy.
I think that's a really good idea.
This guy could have the shield.
But I don't even think that's necessary.
No, but I'm saying, like,
I think even if Sam gives up the shield and then the government's like, hey, we need a Captain America, and Sam's just like, yeah, we do. I'm not the guy for that. This guy is. And then Bucky's like, no, he goes entirely against what Steve said.
No, sure. But yeah, what in the end, all I'm saying is, what if Bucky and Sam are on opposite sides of who this new Captain America is?
Yeah, that's so good. And I think that also brings in, like, a governmental intrigue, which I feel like is really missing. What movie had Robert Redford in it?
Winter Soldier and Endgame.
So in Winter Soldier, there's like that government intrigue with Robert Redford. And I feel like that's what I want out of this. But as we just said, like, the Flag Smashers are kind of just like, they're like mooks. I don't know what their goal is. I don't know what they're trying to do. They're just kind of angry and powerful. Like, even Carly, she has a name and a face, but what do I care? And I just feel like, and we keep bringing up this idea of like a superhero, super soldier, like having this governmental intrigue of why it's John Walker and what the government's trying to accomplish with John Walker is like such a way more interesting way to bring in action scenes while also doing character introspectives into Bucky and Sam. But it wants to go into this Flag Smasher stuff, which, I mean, honestly, it feels kind of like the Mandarin, where it's just like, what's the point of all this?
It's so clearly not the focus.
It's just kind of like...
I remember in the Mandarin, it had Guy Pearce, who was very clearly like, this guy's the villain. Because what else? His scenes have no purpose otherwise. And granted, this is a little different, but I don't know. The Flag Smashers just don't feel important. They feel like a reason for events to happen, but not the actual, like, thing that the show is rallying towards. On the opposite ends, though, like, look back on WandaVision. WandaVision succeeded without a villain for the longest time until it suddenly said there is one. And I guess it's weird that we're arguing kind of for the opposite of WandaVision. Granted, WandaVision is a completely different show, so that's valid, but... And
WandaVision, for the first half, like, before it gets a villain...
is an even more
is a show that doesn't have
yeah,
villains.
But that one shoehorns a villain in, and this one, I guess I know that as a superhero show, and just as even a buddy cop show, they need some kind of villain some kind of antagonist to rally against, but I feel like it could be John Walker, and John Walker doesn't have to be a mustache-twirling mega villain. It could just be like, he doesn't stand for the ideals. Maybe he's too violent. Maybe maybe he has a red on his ledger that no one knows about. Maybe he has a dark past.
He's like Bucky as Captain America. That's why Bucky doesn't want to be...
Yeah, actually, you say that.
Because...
Maybe that's a good point. Maybe Sam goes like, we need another, like, golden soldier to be the next... We can't get another super soldier, so we need the best of the best. This guy's the best of the best. I'm not the best of the best. I'm just like some guy who tested a flight, or who used a flight suit. I'm going to give the shield to this guy. He's going to do better than me. Plus, hey, that's two superheroes as opposed to me, me being the next Captain America. Yeah. Now I can still do my thing. I just won't have a shield. This guy can have the shield. And then, Bucky can say, like, we don't need another Captain America, or like, this guy isn't Captain America but material, or this guy's like going too hard too fast, or whatever. And then in the end, even Sam can realize, like, you know what, maybe I do need to stand for something, and
keep the Flag Smashers who they are, because they don't have any worthwhile in at least these 3 episodes. But like, the Flag Smashers are the mooks in that's where you see the differences between Sam and U.S. Agent and Bucky, and how they deal with the Flag Smashers plot.
Mm-hmm. Like, what was it? Oh, it wasn't something we watched. I have been reading Grayson, the DC comic, after Dick Grayson's identity was public as Nightwing. He joins a spy agency called Spiral, and he gets a new book called Grayson. Anyway, There's a thing in that where he has joined a spy agency, basically undercover for Batman. Not really undercover because he is there as Dick Grayson, but he's doing it to get intel and whatnot. But he like refuses to do anything lethal. He won't kill. Long story short, there's a really good issue about a guy who like sees through his guns and he's going to shoot all these people and whatnot, and he stole something. I don't remember all the specifics, but there's a thing where Grayson refuses to take lethal measures, and because he doesn't, some things go wrong, but in the end, like, he does get the guy to stand down, but then other agents step in and murder the guy, and Grayson's pissed about it. And I feel like maybe you could do something like that where, I don't know, maybe all US Agent is he's an ends justifies the means kind of guy, and Bucky and Sam disagree.
I don't feel like there's anything here. I don't know what the Flag Smashers are for other than just being a generic mook. I don't, like, it's not really doing anything worthwhile with Sam and Bucky and US Agent. I don't know. Like, none of it's really coming together for me. And yeah, I missed the second episode, so what? The show sucks. But, like,
I will say the second episode is the one with, I think, the most going on in it.
Yeah, and I will honestly try and, like, get back into this, and I'm going to try and rewatch these throughout the week and then watch the last ones so I have a full watch. But I just don't know what the show is trying, like with WandaVision, I don't know what the show is trying to accomplish. I don't know what it wants to say. It feels very messy in a sense of just like, do you want to talk about this or not? You mention it, but are you just mentioning it to be like, hey, we mentioned it, now let's get to just like a generic Marvel thing? I don't know. It all feels so safe and sanitary and corporate, and just, what's the point, I guess? Didn't somebody care enough to add a point to this show? Other than just like, and now for the next Captain America movie, like you said. Like, I mean, is this just a through line? Is this just people will watch it and we can spend money on it and make money off it, and we don't really need to tell a story?
Like I said, I think there's a story it's trying to tell. There's definitely, like a lot of these. I was thinking this recently about the Marvel movies. You can tell the Marvel movies have a billion zillion writers. And I was thinking this watching Shang-Chi, which I don't want to get too much into, but you can tell that these movies have a billion zillion writers. There's the continuity writer. There's the Marvel mush writer who just like make sure they all sound the same. But I was thinking on a lot of these movies and whatnot, you can tell that a real writer wrote a real script. Good or bad, there is a script that is cohesive. But then someone comes in and says, we need to have an action scene at the end where this happens. We need to do this. We need to have a scene
we need to connect
where
it with
Thor goes into a jacuzzi and learns about the Infinity Stones. And that's where it all starts to crumble and fall apart. And that's why these movies are 2.5 hours long or whatever. And that's kind of what this feels like. I feel like when this was originally pitched, I'm sure that the reason was we need to have this connective tissue to this, whether that's actually the pitch or if it was just like, if we do this, we can have this connective.
That was like the contract. That was like, can you write a story to connect these two things?
Or to set up, like, it feels like each of these...
It needs to start with this, it needs to end with this.
So far, it feels like I've watched all 3 of these shows, and they all feel like, whether it's intent or not, they all exist to set something up. Like, that seems to be the reason they got bankrolled. Whether that was the original intent or not, I don't know if maybe someone just came and said, I have an idea for a Bucky and Sam story. And someone said, okay, but it needs to end on a thing so that we can do the next thing. Like, Wanda has to become the greatest magician ever so that she can show up doing real magic because she's never done real magic before.
It doesn't, like, I know this is like phase 4, but it feels like 3.5. It doesn't feel like they stand on their own.
I think it's the Marvel mush that makes them not stand on their own, because I feel like there is a story in here. I feel like someone thought they had something with the Flag Smashers. I feel like someone thought they had something with the Bucky and Sam in the SHIELD thing. I feel like they had something with John Walker. And again, I don't remember how it all shakes out by the end. I mean, I do, but I don't remember the specifics. And I watch these, when you watch these one at a time and you're not jaded because you didn't binge the entire series of movies right before, they hit a little differently. You watch it and, you don't really know what's coming next, and you watch it while you're doing your work on Friday morning and you're like, hey, it's doing some neat stuff. At the time I watched this the first time, I thought, hey, this is doing more of what I want the movies to do. There are quiet scenes of people talking.
And that is true. They take moments.
And I think they're taking moments for the right things. I just feel like it's still not, it's being diluted. It is diluting the audience, and it is being diluted by all of the Marvel crap. everywhere.
It doesn't want to do a character story. It just wants to
It wants to have the character moments, which is better because the movies don't want to have, they want to have the character big moments and not earn them. So I feel like this is having the character moments, and it could potentially earn some later moments, but it doesn't care about those character moments as much as it cares about... Again, I disagree. I don't think it cares about the action things. I think it just feels like it needs to have them. Like, I don't think it cares about the action scenes. I think they know that that's what 89% of the audience is going to be there for. They don't care about the scene of Sam going to the bank. They don't care about
And
Bucky.
to be fair, it is superhero media, and this isn't to say that every superhero media needs to be like this, but at least Marvel stuff has built its thing on. Like, I understand that if I go see a superhero media, there's probably fighting in it.
But it doesn't need to be 4 times in every episode.
Right. And, like...
I think another thing, I like episodes coming out week by week, because I don't want to sit there and figure out when do I have time to binge this, and I don't like saying, like, I'll just watch one episode now, one episode tomorrow, whatever, because eventually I'm going to fall off of it, because it's going to... There's like a thing in my mind where I'm like, it's always there, so I can just get to it whenever, and so that means I get to it never. But when it's like, a new episode came out this week, everyone's talking about it, I don't want spoilers, I'm going to watch it now, it's only 45 minutes of my time, whatever. I like that. That said, I think because it's coming out once a week, it needs to make sure that every episode has something to hold attention and something to be worth discussing. Even just like general audience discussion, like get on Twitter and tell everybody how, hashtag Flag Smashers, hashtag John Walker, whatever. And I feel like if this was a bingeable show, if this was coming on Netflix, you could put the Sam goes to the bank thing and have an entire episode where he never puts on a fucking suit. And he just, it's just him and his sister. You could have an entire episode of Bucky
talking to his
therapist and meeting with his old man friend and going on a date. And it could end on him leaving the date because it's all too much for him. But instead, that just kind of happens in the middle of everything else going on. And it's all kind of sidelined to have more of the everything else going on. And I feel like if you did have a week where that was the only episode, you'd have 1 million people online saying, like, I'm not going to watch any more of this. It was boring. Because I've seen people turn on a show in one episode because that they thought, and it's usually the episode I liked most, that one episode is the most boring episode and they didn't care and it's stupid and they're not watching it anymore. And they can't risk that. Disney can't risk that.
And I mean, like, my problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that, so the flight suit fight scene in the first episode.
Fight suit.
Hey.
That took you a really long time. Did you fall asleep after my joke?
I was like, what are you trying to accomplish right here?
Nothing. It was just when you said flight suit fight scene, I thought flight suit fight suit. And I was like, I'm just going to say it. I don't care. It makes me laugh. That was for me.
But Sam needs to rescue that guy.
Yeah, I don't remember why.
And that's the thing. What do these fight scenes serve? Nothing.
They break up the monotonous, boring.
Even the one with Sharon
moments.
Carter in the third episode in the shipping container area, like, yeah, you can argue that, oh, well, like, that's the tension and, like, that's the countdown for them to leave. But it's not really... The fight scene is not delivering something that the rest of the plot already hasn't. You know what I mean? Like, we're not learning something from a fight scene. They're just fight scene for fight scene's sake.
Well, like I said, I think the biggest offender is Endgame, because I feel like Endgame's entire fight scene serves no real purpose other than to just be like, we're at the end of the movie, we need to have our big stupid action beat. And it could have just been a time heist, where the tension at the end is, are they going to complete the time heist? But instead, it's like, we succeeded in our time heist mission, and the whole point of the movie, we succeeded in that, but because of dumb bullshit, now we gotta fight Thanos for 45 goddamn minutes. And it's a nightmare.
What was honestly said with that first fight scene in the first episode where they rescue that dude that doesn't exist anymore?
I'm going to disagree with you here. Okay, I'm going to agree. You can take that scene out. You don't need it. But at the same time, it establishes Sam, what he's doing, what his abilities are. It shows off all of his powers.
That's fair. It's the first episode. It's like the second scene. That's fair. Introduce the character.
It's also like you start on an action scene just for something exciting to get the audience. Like,
I would argue that I would have liked him to rescue somebody relevant to the plot.
He should have rescued what's his
Bucky.
No, what's his name? Joaquin
Phoenix.
No, the kid.
What kid?
There's the kid who gets beat up by the Flag Smashers and he sticks a camera in his... You may have been asleep. He's also the one that Sam is sitting with.
Oh, no, he's the guy on the ground.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He should have been the one he saves because then he's important. Then I care who he is. and I know who he is later, as opposed to just some rando.
Just like a dude on the ground. Yeah.
He should have been the one that he saves, because it said he saved some rando. I don't know who that guy is. I don't remember why he was saving him. I know they told us, but I don't care. I just knew that they were there's only so much of the airspace that they could be in before the government would
I'm on
shoot
this
them
dude's
down or
like
whatever.
I'm on this dude's page, and this is literally it. Like, that's him. That's his bit. I don't know. He was kidnapped, and then he was rescued, and that's his character.
Yeah, it should have been Joaquin, because then, he saves Joaquin, and Joaquin says, hey, let me buy you a drink. And then they have that scene where they sit there and they talk about what's going on. We learn about the Flag Smashers. Instead, he's just like some guy on the ground. He's like, hey, I'm Sergeant Torres, or Lieutenant Air Force, First Lieutenant. So I'm Lieutenant Torres. I'm going to tell you when you're in the no-no zone. Have fun. He doesn't serve a purpose. And, like, he's a character in the comics. I believe he's the new Falcon. But, like, in the show, he's there for a name drop. But he doesn't do anything that matters. But at least if he's the person that he saves, and it's like, hey, this is Sam's new friend.
Plus, like, I don't know, there's this LAF terrorist group that kidnaps the guy in the first episode. But that's not even a part of the show either.
Yeah, I feel like Batroc comes back later, but you're right that he's not. Like,
it's not like LAF is
maybe
the
in the
Flag
end
Smashers.
it matters that whatever they were doing is something that the Flag Smashers care about, but, like, I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't remember.
But that's what I mean. Like, this fight scene, or this action scene, feels so disconnected.
But I also think you can have a completely disconnected first action in an action show.
That's
You can
fair.
have a
I think it's
disconnected
fair
first
to-
action scene. It's just like
because
open
the
and
point is
pizzazz
to
and introduce the character.
That's I will concede there, but I guess
Every other fight
same-
scene, though, could pretty much, outside of the
Yeah.
one on top of the two trucks, could be taken out.
the same conversation goes for the rest, and I just don't feel like they're not using these fight scenes to accomplish or say anything. And I mean, I don't know. I don't watch a ton of fight scene or a ton of like action movies or strictly action movies anymore. So maybe that's just what the genre is. But I guess I just want a fight scene to like progress a plot forward or present information or
I want a fight scene
accomplish something.
I don't mind if a fight scene doesn't progress the plot forward if the fight scene is interesting. And I guess that's my big thing here is I did not find that first fight scene interesting. I found it very hard. I think they're all hard to follow, but I found that one very hard. I think that's why I didn't mind Sharon Carter's, because it was simple. She was fighting one guy at a time, 1 to 2 guys at a time. She was just kind of like moving from guy to guy. It was very clinical and she seemed capable, and it was kind of like watching Black Widow. So I thought that was fun. I liked the fight on the 2 trucks that you fell asleep during, especially because that one is the one that introduces, I mean, we've already seen John, but that introduces him in an action scene. We get to see him and his
in action, and
him with his sidekick, Battlestar. We get to see how they're capable, but not, like, they both kind of like fail. There's some fun stuff going on in there. Bucky gets to drag his arm on the ground, and if you remember anything about our episodes, you know how much I love that. But I think there's fun stuff in that fight scene, and I think it serves a purpose. It introduces Carly. Like, that's the first we see her. It's how we learn that there are multiple people with super soldier powers. We see the new Captain America in action. Bucky and Sam kind of fail. Red Wing gets destroyed. So they kind of are at a low point there. I think that one serves a purpose. But since every episode,
Sounds like it does.
out of the 3 episodes, every episode has, I think, 2 to 3 fight scenes. And I think only one of them is actually important. Like, one of the fight scenes in, I think, 2 is Zemo's prison escape, and it's fine. Like, I don't think it's offensive, but honestly, we could have completely cut that out. We didn't need it, especially because it plays his reveal. I know that the show knows that we already know he's there, but it plays his reveal. Sam turns around and is like, what the fuck's he doing here? And it's
does
like,
he say that?
yes. You could have also just had him show up, and then he's like, because like
What the fuck's he doing here?
Sam was led to believe that they were going there to break him out, and he was not happy about it. But then to learn that Bucky had already broken him out, we could have just done that. But it needs to have its action scenes, so we throw in an action scene. And it's just, I don't know. I think this show is fine so far. But I agree with all of your problems. So far, I think it's fine. And I think part of that is I'm still kind of trying to grade it on only the first 3 episodes. And I think in the first 3 episodes, It's doing what it sets out to do. We'll talk more when it concludes itself. Anything else that you have to remember through sleepy eyes?
Hey, we didn't do bad.
That's true.
I'm ready.
Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
Bank scene. 1, I remember it. No, I know in the grand scheme of things it doesn't matter at all, but
It's a scene of what you want this to be.
if that was like a little Marvel one-shot, I'd be like, yeah, that was good. But instead it was just like 5 minutes inside of an hour-long episode that I didn't care about. But I thought, instead of it being just like, hey, everybody, we understand what you're saying. We know, we just don't care. It was dumb for me. My second put up is going to be, boy, this is even harder when you don't watch the show. I liked...
Did you have a comfortable pillow?
I did. You know, I was actually really comfortable. I liked, maybe this is a cheap shot, but I liked Sam in the first episode. I thought he's helping his sister with her like little restaurant thing, and he has the bank scene. He has the scene where he's like dealing with the imposter syndrome of being given the shield. I thought there was like some decent character introspection there.
Did you like seeing Rhodey? One thing I remember about Age of Ultron was
I
you
didn't
liked
care
when you
seeing
saw
Rhodey.
Rhodey.
Did I really say that?
Yeah.
As a joke or what?
No, you liked it. He shows up in, like, I think the final fight or something, and you're like, I like that Rhodey was there because it was like part of the interconnective stuff before you were all completely burnt out. He doesn't have his like big robot legs, which I don't remember when he stopped wearing those, because I thought he was wearing them in Endgame, which is why he had to wear the whole like War Machine suit to the time heist. But I could be wrong. And I mean, Tony Stark was back for the whole 5 years, so some of the 5 years of the snap. So I'm sure when he built his cabin and went away to the woods, he would have tried to build his best friend better legs that weren't like bulky monstrosities that would not fit in pants. But I was noticing he was like in a full suit, and I was like, I guess he's not wearing the big like bulky.
Maybe
robot
Don
legs
Cheadle
anymore.
just didn't want to put on the prosthetics. Just shoot me from the waist up.
Maybe the Marvel continuity writers just didn't fucking care anymore.
How come people don't know what to do other than like just make them move out to the woods in a cabin?
That's what you
like
do.
Hawkeye.
That's what you do.
That's what you do when you're done. You just move out into the woods.
That's what we're both going to do when we're done with all the Marvel movies. We'll just go out.
I mean, everyone does that. That's like how they get rid of people. They're just like, it's like instead of dogs going to the farm.
Well, that's because if they still live in the city, they could bump into someone on the way to go get a hot dog. And then they're like, if they're in the woods, then they can't help in the super thing until everybody drives out there and he says, I'm never coming back.
They should just tell him that, like, where's Wanda? She went off to live at the farm. My put down is, I can't say the first action scene because you do bring up a very good point of like, you gotta introduce the main character. I'm gonna say the first action scene because I did hate it. I really did hate it. It honestly reminded me, I'm sure it looked a million times better. It honestly reminded me of like, do you remember the old Iron Man video game for like the PS3 or whatever?
I remember that it existed. I've never seen it or played it.
I don't even think I played it, but I just like, it reminded me of that. It just looked so bad. And again, it probably looked really good for a TV show. I understand it doesn't have the same budget as the movies. I understand I was tired. It just, I mean, it did not hit me well at all. So I'm going to say that. Plus, I just don't get the fascination with wingsuits. I know there's only like 3 movies that it exists in, but that is 3 too many. I just like don't understand why people are like, we need a cool flying action scene. What do? Give them wingsuits. Why?
My first put up is going to be, I like the Bucky scenes with his therapist and with his old man friend and his date gone wrong.
I thought those are really cool scenes.
I like Bucky trying to relate to the world. There's a couple little bits where, you know, they talk to him about some modern things. There's that thing with Zemo on the plane that you might have been asleep during where they talk about music.
Oh yeah, Marvin Gaye and stuff.
I like that stuff. I like the Man Out of Time stuff. So I like a lot of Bucky's stuff in this. The problem is I think we've seen the extent of it outside of its like conclusion near the end. My second put up is I like the fight on top of the 2 trucks. It's nothing super special, but I think there's a lot of fun stuff in there. Thinking on like your reasoning for why I have a fight scene, I think it serves a purpose. I think it serves a couple purposes. It introduces the new Captain America in action. It introduces the villain. It lets us see our 2 heroes fight together. They also get to hit a low point and fail. I think that is a fun fight scene. My put down.
I kind of like how your put-ups are things I didn't even see.
That way you can't contest me on them. My put down, other than your nap, is I feel like the show is unfocused. I feel like it's not really sure what it wants to say and what it wants to accomplish. It just knows what its like finish line is. I feel like it knows where it wants to end. It doesn't really know how it wants to get there, and it doesn't really care how it gets there. And I feel like everything is kind of like half thought out. I think Bucky, like I said, the extent of Bucky's story is almost done at this point. Like it doesn't really care, as I remember. Sam has a lot more going on, but I feel like it doesn't really care to focus too much on Sam. It doesn't really care to focus, it like wants to draw attention to, but doesn't want to focus on the fallout of, I think they call it the blip, but the snap. Mm-hmm. The villains
it feels
are nothing.
Directionless.
As of right now, John Walker is nothing. Isaiah Bradley is completely nothing in this. And he's honestly one of the more interesting things the show has done. It just doesn't care. It's there as a footnote, as a side plot to be like, ooh, look at this. I mean, he's honestly there for a cameo. So I think that's my main put down, is it's just very unfocused, and I'm not really sure what it's trying to do. And I think it's mostly a problem because it is doing what I want. This is, I think, the most monkey's paw, but I think this is the most of what I want out of the Marvel Universe. I think this is the closest it's getting to, if we're going to have the Marvel Universe as it exists, this is what I want from it. It's just, like I said, it's a monkey's paw. It's not doing it right. I mean, honestly, the most of what I want out of the Marvel Universe is the first 3 episodes of WandaVision, but that's mostly just like, I want weird stuff. And that's not really what they're concerned with doing.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with interference.
Watcher. Boop.
Seth, now that the mics are off, what are we watching next time? Mics off, lights on, so you stay awake.
Well, Andrew, I'm glad you asked. Next week, you're going to watch the second half of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm going to watch all 6. I'm going to watch the second half, and then we'll hit record, and while we're talking, I'm going to be watching the first half.
And then you'll just occasionally interject with the new thought you had based on information you now learned.
And I'll say, oh my god, that fight scene in episode 2 was cool. And it did matter. And you'll be like, I told you. And I'll be like, shh.
I'm watching.
Things are happening. I'm watching. Shut up. No, I would like to formally apologize to everyone I've hurt for falling asleep. It's a sincere apology. Or I can double down, whichever you'd prefer. And say, I'm going to sleep all the time now. I'm just going to sleep all day.